With your sisters opening up, what was specifically difficult for you? Any disentangling? I feel like any child growing up, you're always gonna, at the, teenage years, you're gonna start questioning things. You're gonna start having those thoughts of like, okay, well, what do I believe? You're gonna become an individual. And I feel like I did that some, but I do think that, reading my sister's books and just not even reading their books, but just talking to them, specifically Jinger. I feel like talking to Jinger before her book came out and talking specifics, I feel like it kind of did rock my world a little bit.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Thursday, May 9th, 2024. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Well, listen, Anna Duggar Forsyth has finally come to the table and confirmed that she is now in the process of disentangling, disconnecting, deconstructing from the faith that she grew up in. And she has made this statement on a recent Q&A on her channel, Follow the Forsyths. It's in a video titled Inside My Mind Q&A. She answers questions about what it was that prompted her to make changes in her life, what changes she might be doing in the future, why some of the rules that she grew up under as a child are not going to be rules that are carried forward into her future or with her children, and really kind of where she is at today. This is actually pretty awesome because Joy and Austin obviously are of the older sect of the kids. She is the youngest of the 5 oldest girls, and she was after a bunch of boys. So the girl that's closest in age to her would be Jinger. She is a mother of 3. She is, before the Duggars had their last set of girls, there's 4 at the very end of the Duggar family. She had been the last girl for a very long time. So Joy's decision to deconstruct is proof that yet another one of the girls is disconnecting from the faith that they grew up in. She still sees her family, she still associates with them, and it sounds like it's still a process that's happening, but she and Austin are both waking up. So let's talk a little bit about what she shared in her video. As you saw in the beginning of this video, Joy credits the conversations with Jinger as to helping her to sort of wake up and deconstruct and understand things from a different perspective. In fact, she said that Jinger's book and speaking to Jinger and understanding and processing rules from her childhood and beliefs that she had been taught as a child and going into her adulthood, how it wasn't actually biblical, and she said her world almost became a little bit shattered by that.
It kind of did rock my world a little bit, because I thought I had worked through some of the things that I thought I'd worked through, and I feel like there was a lot of things that I just realized after talking with her. I was like, oh, you know what? I've never specifically thought about this area, or things that I believe, or what I don't believe, or I knew I didn't believe certain things, but I hadn't actually worked through that and why. And so I think that it kind of did shake my world a little bit.
She says that it gave her the opportunity to look from a holistic perspective at her life and see the teachings that were flawed and that weren't biblical and that maybe she had been taught that were false. She does not mention speaking to Jill. And I will say this, that when it comes to the books written by the Duggar girls, Jinger and Jill, the book that the Duggar family doesn't like is one written by Jill. Ginger's book is a theological memoir. She goes through the teachings of the IBLP. She doesn't specifically name her parents. She doesn't bring up any grievances. She really doesn't do any of the sort. And instead, she looks at the doctrine of what she was taught and against what is actually in the Bible. And she did this, she said, to help hopefully others trapped in the system to wake up and come out of it and realize that there is freedom on the other side. A lot of people felt like Ginger's book was like softballing it, where there were innuendo and there was dancing around topics, but she still got her point across. The book was actually co-authored by someone from the Master's Seminary, which is John MacArthur's church, and others critics argue that she is in just a new cult. Regardless of that, the book itself is what Joy says is what helped her realize that the teachings she learned in the IBLP were false. And now she's in the process of trying to figure out what she believes and what she doesn't believe. Ginger hoped that this would be a result of what she was doing, and it looks like at least the book helped one of her siblings see beyond the lies.
Would you let your children court without chaperones and trust them to act responsibly? Austin and I have talked about this. So if you guys don't know, Austin and I courted when we were, basically it's dating, but with the purpose of getting married. And so we've talked about this. So like, what are we going to do with our kids? Because our personal opinion that we've talked about, and we've kind of come to a decision, obviously things probably will change because we are far from that. But we feel like if you are responsible enough to get married and to have a family of your own, you should be responsible enough and have the self-control and that character, I guess, to set your boundaries and set your things that your standards, and be responsible enough to keep yourself accountable to those. And so that's just kind of our opinion. I feel like obviously if our kids want to say, hey mom, we're not going to do this and we aren't going to do this, I will be there for them for that. But I don't think it's completely necessary to have a chaperone with you 100% of the time.
This is probably the most, I would say, logical statement I've heard a Duggar make about dating and being able to be responsible and accountable to your own actions without having to have somebody watch you. The Duggars came from this place where Bill Gothard believed that women and men cannot be together in the same room, because if they are, they're just going to like become one big sex fest. Like, young men and women cannot control themselves, do not know how to stay away from each other, that even a kiss will turn into sex. And so it was so severe. It was like the pendulum swung from one extreme to the other. And they didn't allow the kids to ever be alone and really get to know anyone. And unfortunately, their relationships existed where they're monitored constantly, and they're not allowed to do much of anything. They're not allowed to touch really, even until they're engaged. And then once they're engaged, they can only hold hands. So here she's saying, at this point, our decision is that as long as our kids are old enough and responsible enough to get married, and they're going to start a family as a part of that, then they should be old enough and responsible enough to have their own standards, their own set of rules, and be able to hold themselves accountable and be responsible for themselves and be responsible for their actions. Because obviously, you know, chaperones did nothing to stop Josh, right? Chaperones did nothing to stop the abuse that happened in her home. So I think it's a logical step to say, you know, allow kids the space to make their own choices. She and Austin are developing a more progressive mindset than the extreme ways and views that she had as a child.
Describe your personal conviction changing about pants after marriage. Austin and I prayed about it for a long time, and for those of you that are like, oh, that's ridiculous, why would you pray about that? Like, to me, growing up, it was a very big deal. While it wasn't even a big deal to me, like I was like, I have this, like I literally grew up wearing skirts my whole life. I know no different, and so why change it, kind of thing. Came to the conclusion of, we really don't feel like pants are immodest, and obviously I think you can be, I think your heart is what is the matter. Like that's the thing. Like you can wear skirts and be immodest and your heart not want to be wearing them, and you know, whatever. And the same with pants. So I think you just, whatever you're wearing, you have to be, it's your spirit behind it. And I think we realized that we didn't feel like it was something that God is black and white in the Bible, and so we felt like it was a decision that it was okay for us to make.
I think what's happening with Austin and Joy is that both of them have grown up in extreme fundamentalism. Austin's father is probably one of the strictest, most fundy men there is. Even though his own father couldn't adhere to the standards, even though his own father had a first marriage and a second marriage, did not grow up fundamentalist, He fell into extreme fundamentalism, and he made his kids extremely sheltered. Austin was very much from a very young age forced to work, forced to basically be at home constantly as a help to his dad. He worked at wherever his dad made him work. He was on world's strictest parents. And Joy grew up with also a very sheltered, very strict family. And I think what's happening with the two of them is that they are critically thinking together. Like, wait a minute, just because this was said to us as children, is that how we think? Is that how we feel? I think when she means that the book by Jinger rocked her world, I think Ginger's book allowed her to think critically about what she grew up thinking and what she grew up feeling. She said, I knew that I learned things that I did not believe, but I didn't know why I didn't believe them. And her book allowed me to look at those beliefs and see from a perspective that this is why I shouldn't believe them. This is why I don't believe them. She's got something in her gut that's telling her this is wrong. I shouldn't believe this. This is wrong. And so she didn't, and she resisted. Gothard would call that rebellion. He would call that wicked. He would say that she's got some sort of stronghold in her heart. And so if she's doubting, it's her being akin to witchcraft. And so he makes it so people cannot doubt, and they have a fear of doubting, because if they do doubt, that means they're not going to get the promise of the perfectionist life and going to heaven and being the best person ever and, achieving the keys to success. And so when you're constantly afraid to doubt and you're told you can't doubt and doubting is Satan, you're not allowed to critically think. And so Ginger's book, as flawed as it is, and as much as I hope for Jinger to continue to deconstruct in her life, I think it did open up a door for Joy to be able to critically think. Critical thinking is hard when you grow up in a culture that does not allow it. When everything in your life is programmed and said, this is how it is, this is what it is, this is what it should be, it's very easy to become comfortable and complacent. And when someone tells you that's not what it is, it's almost like having a bomb drop in your life. Like waking up and realizing everything that you were taught in your life could possibly be a lie, and that the foundation of who you are might not even be true. It's a hard realization to come to, and it also can fracture yourself. It can lead to depression. It can lead to loss of identity, loss of self. And, Joy has talked quite a bit about having postpartum and dealing with postpartum. She said that she's been low on vitamins, vitamin D and vitamin K. So her doctor put her on those, and she's working with her doctor about feeling better. It's hard for me not to think that, given the magnitude of everything that's happened in this family since Josh's arrest and everything that she and Austin were forced to face with that trial, her abuse became a part of that trial, right? And what happened to her was testimony in the trial. And it would be very hard to believe that that wasn't traumatizing for her, or it didn't bring back traumatizing memories. Unless she's having professional therapy, which I don't know. She says she's going to a counselor, so I don't know if it's a church counselor or if it's just a accountability person, or if it's a licensed therapist. But she's had more than a few things in the last few years rock the foundation of who she is and change what she viewed as acceptable, normal, and true. And I don't know how any of the girls could come out of that trial and think that it was anything other than good that Josh was put in prison, and feel a sense of maybe minor justice, that he will at least be stopped for the time being while he's in prison and can't hurt anyone else. Their case will never get justice because of the statute of limitations. Him being gone and having that abuser away from you and not having to have him in your face all the time may also have given her the space to think more clearly. It's hard to process when your abuser is everywhere and you're not even allowed to understand that you've been abused. So I think it's just, she has gone through so much. 3 kids, her brother's arrest, her brother's trial, re-traumatized by her abuse becoming part of that trial, Ginger's book, and this sort of dismantling of her faith. It would be only natural that she would be feeling down and feeling sort of lost and head in the clouds along with postpartum. I'm just glad she's getting help, and I'm glad she's being open, and I'm glad she's starting to process, because that's the first part of waking up. It's a long journey, and it's not easy, and it's exhausting, and there's times when you go through it that you're like, it would just be so much easier to believe, what I believed before. And she has said, even in this Q&A, that she struggles sometimes even to have faith. I think that that's also a natural reaction. When you have gone through something as earth-shattering as what happened in her family, it would be easy to lose faith because you felt lied to. And when you lose the faith of your childhood, it's also easy to reject all faith. Not everyone does, but some people do. She still has faith. She still wants to have faith, and that's where she's at, but she's waking up, and that's a good thing. And I wish her the best of success in this path. It's not perfect. She will continue to learn. She'll continue to grow. At least part of what she's doing is breaking the cycles of what she grew up in. And we'll see if this continued speaking results in her becoming more distant from her parents, because her parents don't like this. They don't like the kids talking about this stuff. So we'll see how her parents respond to it, which we don't know how they will because they're rarely ever on social media. What are your thoughts about her waking up? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Have you gone through something similar as Joy? Have you had your foundation rocked? And what are your thoughts about her views on chaperones, not chaperones, parenting? I'd love to hear them. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click on the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching. Bye, guys.